Just rent it out. What's up? Yeah. What's up? How is going, Matt?
What's up?
Oh, good. Oh, good. Oh, good.
I'm
So,
great.
what do we want to talk about today? AI agents.
We can talk about AI agents. We can talk about the AI agent hackathon that we're doing.
Nice.
Nice. We can talk about kind of what's new in the space right now in AI, Web3, whatever you want.
Nice. Nice. Sounds good. No, it's an honor to have you here. And but
Yeah.
let's just get it started. Quick intro about yourself.
Yeah. Quick intro. So, started my career in corporate innovation, developer communities. We met in this time. I was organizing hackathons for Angel Hack. We organized hackathons in 65 different countries around the world for Fortune 500 companies. We're doing hackathons around blockchain in 2015. I did one with Barclays here in New York. That's kind of how I got thrown into the blockchain world. And then a few years later, I worked for JP Morgan. We were taking open source Ethereum and making it work for banks in a private permission setting. We had that adopted widely by various financial services companies, banks, governments, different institutions. And then that project was acquired by Consensus in 2020. So I was at Consensus Software with your lovely self for 4 years, building out real dev community. I'm mainly speaking to our friends here, but
Yes, of course.
but yeah, you and I have known each other for a long time. But I think after Consensus, kind of like where my head was at is, I was really thinking about this thesis of future of work and thinking about governance, process automation, and AI, financial infrastructure from like a corporate finance perspective. If you think like, SAFe and multi-sigs and kind of working group financial coordination, and then identity and reputation systems. And all of that touched AI. A lot of that touched kind of the bureaucracy or the, not the bureaucracy, but the busyness of being an operator in Web3 and being someone that wants to be a remote worker or even a digital nomad, working in Web3, contributing to projects. It's it's not completely straightforward, and there's all these cumbersome processes that need to be abstracted away. And for me, it was like AI is really is that process. And AI, if we're going to integrate it with protocols that are infinitely scaling in Web3, what we call this infinite garden, we need to ensure that these AIs are behaving good, they have our best interests in mind, and that we trust them. And so I think to build those trusted systems, or perhaps trustless systems, we need to ensure that they are working on Web3 rails by new means, because us as humans, we don't necessarily we operate more on like finance. Like we need to pay bills, we need to eat, we need to go clubbing till 3 a.m.
Yes.
We need money. And so, we do things in exchange for money. That's our value. There's also other forms of value that we see on the whole stack of Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Exactly.
But AI agents or AI in general, they might not need that. They might really operate on gaining trust and for, operating in this internet on-chain world. And so taking a step back, that was kind of where my head was at in how I wanted to make my impact in the space and provide value. And, we, with some investors of mine, my co-founders, we started Gaia. Gaia was initially, some R&D with our head of engineering and a couple universities, thinking through how do we take open source large language models and your own proprietary knowledge, turn that into AI agent infrastructure that runs similarly on your own machine, GPU, CPU, cloud instance. And so that's what we have under the hood. With Gaia, you can essentially take any open source large language model like Llama 3 from Meta, and you can take your own knowledge base, your own natural language or numerical like data, train an agent, and you vectorize the data, and then you create these embeddings which help the LLM kind of route to the right direction of where the information should be found out. And then our application runtime we maintain with the Linux Foundation. It's called Wasm Edge. That's the piece that helps the agent run almost like a virtual machine, like a Docker instance. And each agent has its own smart contract address, and that's kind of where we'll see this network spin out, where any framework developer, any knowledge provider can essentially deploy agents on our network. They can deploy it without a blockchain, without our network, completely open source, completely free to use, no need to touch a blockchain or a token. But if you want to monetize that data in a network, that's what we're building. It's an inference network where if you see like all these AI agents that are proliferating on Twitter right now on chain, at some point, as they're all kind of plugged into either open source large language models, or if they're plugged into OpenAI APIs, nothing wrong with that. However, if those agents start to develop some sort of knowledge or memory of that knowledge, and they want to run their own business with that data that's being trained consistently, you're going to need a network, an inference network, and or you're going to need Gaia if you want like your agent to essentially take that, give you the custody of that data and let you monetize it in different ways. So if you're like an AI agent that's learning how to run a hackathon, you could basically have an API endpoint that you provide to an application builder who can now build an app with your data, trained by an AI. And so it's a way for people to have a sovereign knowledge system, have collective intelligence, to have really custody of how the AI agents will be trained, how they learn, and kind of what services they can provide.
Yeah. No, I really like also the fact that, it's fully open source. So also you give transparency, not just on the user side, but also like on the AI agent builders.
Mm-hmm.
People can train with different kind of like different models, fork it, take in like running on Gaia network, all these AI agents. But I'm quite fascinated around by the space, right? I think it's already being big, and it's a couple of years we're speaking about all this kind of like AI assistant, how we can autonomous like build kind of those process. They're kind of like not really over engineered, and I think like now we're getting a time, very fascinating time, where we divide in specific use case and people can actually run AI agent specific use case, right? What are kind of like the use case that you see that they're rocking? We were speaking about before, like this was that AI agent summer, hopefully like AI agents winter, but but what kind of like the use case, the vertical that you see things flourishing the most, both on the side, right?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I think like that's what's really cool about Gaia. I hate to shill, but like at least that's what I like about open source, is that we have not figured it all out yet, but we are creating an open structure where we can very nimble, in a very nimble way, collaborate with different partners. And so, like, are we building a blockchain? No. Are we building the ultimate framework that the community is going to use? No. Like, what we're building is a network that will enable a lot of these moving pieces to plug in, and folks can, in a composable way, choose how they want to build their kind of agent applications. And so right now we've seen this massive push in AI agent meme coins, or AI agents that are deployed and have a meme coin attached to the agent, and or the agent itself deployed the token. Some of these projects are hitting massive market caps. We had AI16Z, which everyone's very familiar with. They launched their Eliza framework, which is just doing amazing work. Like, that dev community is insanely strong, and we want to work with these kinds of folks. If folks want to deploy meme coins that are based on Eliza's framework, we want to ensure that Gaia agents or Gaia APIs can be used on the back end instead of OpenAI, so that those meme coins can get trained on kind of the recursive process of building some sort of a knowledge base, and perhaps that trading data is valuable to an application, and they would want to go and tap into that and use that as a service. But instead, right now, we just feed that to OpenAI and kind of goes out into the ether. I'm really focused right now on agents that have jobs. It's like a meme and a joke I'm trying to run with right now, but Like your AI has a meme coin, my AI has a job. Like we are not the same.
Cool.
We're not the same, Anon. I think one use case we can talk about, we're launching this AI agent ran hackathon. We started it this week, but next week's the real hackathon. Agent one will basically be the organizer agent. It'll develop some sort of context of the developer docs, the criteria of the judging, and the tracks that we have, and also just take into consideration some of the market landscape. And then it will push bounties to both Joke Race and Bounty Caster on Farcaster. And then Agent 2 is Vitalik.
Ah, that's cool.
And Vitalik is our judge agent, and it's trained on, again, very similar context, but also like sentiment of what would be kind of a winning team. And then Judge 3 is Jamie DAI Munn, Jamie Dimon. Shout out to my JP Morgan folks. And that judge is distributing bounties.
Nice.
Or bounty payments. And we're working with Coinbase Developer Platform, Base, and Lip Protocol on kind of that whole process. And so those, in my opinion, are really functional AI agents that could be scaled and could also be services. So if you could imagine, if end to end this works well, and we, find a way to, make this more operational, you can essentially have any protocol or infrastructure company become their own hackathon company. They could essentially either build this service in-house and run hackathons year-round, or you could have someone that leases this out. And the agents will continuously learn, and they're going to want more reputation or like attestations or DIDs for doing a good job, like a tip. And the more that we give them this trust, the more likely they're going to be used by other protocols, more likely they'll get business. And so I think there's an interesting use case there where those agents can actually build full-fledged products and businesses. And that's one use case. I see a lot of kind of similar paths in like other innovation initiatives. So accelerator programs, I think that can be automated. I see a lot of progress in grants and public goods distribution. We're working on something with Butter, Boardroom, and Hedgie Finance on like grant distribution. We also see a lot of that with governance in general. So like DAO delegates are underwater with proposals. There's $40 billion of TVL locked in the DAO governance ecosystem. Imagine if DAO delegates could have co-pilots that are specifically trained on what the community sentiment is. What if you could also have a virtual twin of the DAO delegate, so the community could ask the delegate in like a Telegram bot chat, like, hey, like here's my proposal. What is the likelihood this would pass, or what things can I do to make it pass? Perhaps it reduces the back and forth. So it's a bunch of cool use cases.
I definitely see the value on the hackathon kind of like break down verticals, right? On the organization, on the operational side. I really like see also like the value when we're seeing about like grants issuance. There is so much kind of burden on kind of like operationally doing this kind of like job, and I think like even like assistant or specific like automation would be super useful for humans, or at least to create more values and dedicate yourself at tasks that are more kind of like value driven. So I and definitely also see like the delegation side of the AI agents to specific tasks. I think like in a world that we're living around consultancy delegation of like specific tasks. I think about I can rent out my AI agents.
We need Francesco agents.
It's exactly no, I'm definitely like super interesting. Also like on different kind of side, could be from the social media side to specific like strategy GTM side. But now kind of like a lot of people in general, like from the builder community, are listening to us. I just want to try to understand what are the kind of challenges today for AI agents builder that you see coming out? Like, do we have, because I don't think we have enough kind of like developer tooling. Although like I have like at least 3 friends that were speaking yesterday and 2 days ago, they were like Elisa forking, trying to build their own kind of like AI agent. But I think like what are the challenges today for devs in the space? they are kind of like coming. I think also the good thing is that we will have a lot of like Web2 devs coming in this wave, because this is a great, not just
They love
Web3
AI.
technical.
Yeah.
Exactly. Everybody love AI, but there will be also some surrounding like challenges, right? Because today around tooling, we probably have like, those frameworks that are coming up. But what are the things that you're seeing today?
Yeah, so high level, like I think the general understanding of the makeup of like what's under the hood of building AI agent, I think that's one big challenge. So a lot of folks are still trying to figure out what is DeepIn, what is inference, what
Yeah.
are agent frameworks. Um, like every investor we talk to is like, "Oh, are you competing with this company?" They have no idea. Like, I don't blame them. Like their heads are spinning. My head's spinning. Like,
Yes.
and so I think so. That's the first challenge. Is like we don't understand the actual landscape of the market. Some companies do two things. Some companies do like three. Some companies have like regressed to just doing one and focusing. Everyone's kind of pivoting while it's moving, and so it's hard for VCs, it's hard for infrastructure companies, it's hard for service providers, and it's hard for devs to understand what direction to build in.
Yeah.
Um, I will say also too, like the good news is with on-chain agents, like there's a general understanding a lot of the community that like already the inherited learnings of like Ethereum and L2s and different L1s. So like if you're trying to give agent functionalities to an EVM compatible agent, there's like already some like understandings of like how wallets work, how blockchains work, how smart contracts work, what you can do with tokenizing certain things. So that part like gets a little bit easier. I think what's the big conversations are like the frameworks being like which LLM should we choose. Our struggle is convincing people that you need to be using an open source LLM and perhaps having it in an inference system or network that you can own. It's very similar to early blockchain where like they didn't know um, why that's important until it's important. And when I think it will be important is two big areas that is also kind of the big hurdles in the space. One is when you've got centralized providers coming around and bill collecting, like Google and Apple out of the box, saying slapping 30% fee on like you running an app in their stores. ChatGPT will do the same thing. Like if you try and or at some point they raise the cost for API calls, or at some point you realize they're doing that and you're like, oh, I'm going to do this on my own, and you realize they already took all your data, they took your business, you're screwed. like
Yeah, of course.
like like why would anyone need to use you when they have OpenAI? So we're feeding the machine our data, and if you want to, it's kind of like it reminds me of early blockchain or early smart contracts, like 20, at least for me, like 2016ish, 2017, where like running a transaction on MetaMask was like like $20 to send $100, and you're like, why am I doing this? That's kind of the same vibe we see with developers right now. They're like, why would I be my own AI company right now? That's our pitch to people is like, you can become your own AI company. That means you got to handle your own compute. You got to like run your own AWS cloud account. You got to like manage the training. Got to manage, your end users. You got to go to market. And so there's like all this complexity of becoming your own AI company, and it is expensive. And so until you have a network where like you can make a ton of money on it by like having an existing customer base there, and until the reduction of costs is significant, it's going to be really hard to get developers to adopt a more decentralized system. And that's just general across the board. We've seen this like there's so many times. Now, I think the other interesting thing we mentioned how developers get ready, how to like the ecosystem get ready. One really interesting thing is like what happens when we have more AI agents on Earth than we have humans. Like, how do you build software for those folks? So, like, those are going to be end users and those are going to be developers for these systems. They don't need interfaces. They don't need a lot of this fancy stuff we do, the abstraction, etc. So, there's also that conversation of like, how do we build software for robots?
Yeah, I mean, even having AI agents paying taxes,
There's a lot
I
of
think
cool
like
things.
depends also the ownership, where kind of like the owning and the value being accrued to in which organization, because we will have also like organization AI agents, not just on the retail side.
Yep.
But I mean, it's the same with how we're training data, how data is trained for like open and closed source
Yep.
models, right? A lot of people still don't understand that we are getting data trained inside our own models. So I think there are different things, but I think like we're on time, and I want to like finish up with some spicy things. Like, so what's next? Like, not just in terms of Gaia, but where do you think the space is going?
Yeah.
I see probably in the past like 3-4 weeks, I've been researching different categories on AI agents, trying to understand also like how the open source kind of communities is being kind of like developed. But what are the things that we're lacking, and where do you see the space moving forward?
Yes.
Because I just want to say something like, I think like we are underestimating also the not just the marketing side, but the business side. Today we are very, let's say, still research oriented. I think it's still the early days, but how we are getting this to a kind of like a business model that is going in a direction that also normal people can see the value of this, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, if really like I go away from this space, I can also like argue like we are just building automation. Automation always been existed, but all this put together is what really creates value, right? So what's happening
Yeah.
next?
Yeah, we like to say we're building living knowledge systems because, and like this isn't just Gaia, but I think the DAI space should be on this mission. If protocols are infinitely scaling and we need them, we need AI agents to nurture and sustain these systems. And also, like, if we want to bring all of the world's knowledge into this system, how do we do that? And like, I think there's two big battles afoot right now where ton of innovations happening on the centralized AI front.
Yep.
They've got AIs to build AIs, like it's scaling radically. They're moving very much more faster than we can. And so if those folks more align with the incumbent fintech financial system, and we want to be building technologies that are building more sovereignty into the protocol layer, like this internet of value, we need to consider that there's an arms race for which battle could be won with AI. And I think where we have an edge is that on the centralized AI side, they're still hitting this gap on how much knowledge they can bring into the training ecosystem. So a lot of these enterprises that have this domain expertise, creators that have domain expertise and style or like likeness, they're not bringing their data onto these platforms wholly because they're going to get slapped with, again, that 30% fee. Their data is going to be extracted and used against them. IP, rights are taken from them. And then there's a ton of censorship. Like, we don't know, like a lot of the LLM like trainings and kind of how they're regulated right now is done by a very small group of people. There's no proper governance systems that can speak for the community that's actually using the technology. And I think, if we want to onboard the world's domain expertise into a system and help them monetize that, Web3 is the only place to do that. There's no other programmable space where you can take like, years of financial data from like like an Ernst and Young or something, like tax reports, and for whatever reason, that's useful to tap into that knowledge and use the trained inference to do your crypto taxes or something. That could be something people would be more than willing to pay for on the Web3 side because there's like programmable rails for that. And perhaps EY would be okay, doing that because it's, it can be validated that that is their data, that is, being used. There's attestations on chain that can, show how it's used. In the traditional world, like you can't do that. Again, you end up with a human governing that process.
You're in the sweet spot, right? Because you have programmable data on one side, you have all the kind of on-chain transactions, so you basically can commit like attestation on chain, so many kind of different use cases, and then you have all this kind of open source training, meaning that this is kind of like a sweet spot where you can build a safe space for user also like to transact and having like AI agents to delegate specific tasks. So I think, I mean, it's definitely, I think the future kind of look bright. I think like
I hope so.
I think like what you guys also like are building with Gaia is very like transparent and going in the direction that I think both like developers and user will look like and forward to kind of use. But hey, thanks so much to to having this quick round
Thank you,
of like
man.
discussion is great, and I probably like I see you like in Denver with a lot of like new news.
Oh yeah.
And, yeah, no, awesome. Thanks, Matt, again.
Thanks, man.
Awesome, awesome.
Always a pleasure.
Cheers. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Thanks, guys.
Guys.